So this feels weird, right? I'm not the only one feeling it. This feels a little bit strange coming back to Cities Skylines 2. My last video on the game was at the start of March this year. I've not played it since, but Economy 2.0 has come out and fixed a bunch of the economy-related problems that Cities Skylines 2 had. It has changed a bunch of things that make the game more challenging, that make you focus more on the simulation. But beyond all of that, there have been a bunch of mods that have come out since I stopped playing this game, most of which I haven't played with. I've seen people playing with them. Oh, I have seen people make amazing things with them, but I've not played with them myself. At least I hadn't played with them myself until very recently. Now, I mentioned Economy 2.0, and in case you're curious about how that's going for Linden, this is a pretty good picture of how things are going. I've watched a bunch of people dealing with similar things to this, and I knew that a death wave was going to be a part of this update. I've known that since before the update came out. I was fortunate enough to be part of the group that were involved in testing this update. I didn't test it myself because I haven't played the game in 4 months. But I knew this death wave was coming, and we all did. Everyone knew this death wave was coming. The problem is that everyone that I've watched on YouTube has been very careful with how they've built their cities, and they have kept their populations relatively low. They have been very specific in what they've built and where they've built it and how they've built it and how quickly or not quickly their population has grown. I did not do that. So Linden, as a city with a population of currently 206,417 people, has experienced a death wave a little bit like this, and this has been the case for the last 5 hours of gameplay. I was going to let this go away before I sit down to record this episode, but I think this is a good lesson in maybe a way to play Cities Skylines 2. Maybe don't play it the way I play it, because this, well, it doesn't matter anymore. Economy 2.0 is out, but if you had a city anything like this, and you haven't booted up the update yet, well, good luck. Now, in saying that, part of my problem with Linden right now is the crematorium availability. The cemeteries are doing okay, but there really weren't enough crematoriums in this city until very recently. I actually took some time on both a live stream and, well, I was going to say between episodes, but that doesn't really apply when the last episode was 4 months ago. I took some time and I placed a couple more cemeteries. No, crematoriums. That's the word I'm looking for. Now, one of them is right out here by Primrose Campus. I figured something kind of close to the suburbs might not be a bad idea, and that has worked. This suburb was originally absolutely covered in, well, all of these icons. Thankfully, it isn't anymore, and I think part of that is because we have a dedicated crematorium out here. And then I figured we probably want something in the city. Obviously, the first thing that I built in Cities Skylines 2, which was maybe September, maybe August last year, I don't remember exactly when it was this thing. This cemetery was the first major thing that I did. This was a feature of that first episode's thumbnail, and I still love how this has turned out. There's been some modifications here and there, but it's pretty cool. It just isn't enough, especially with how traffic's going around it. So I talked about mods, and I talked about some of the fun I've been having with them and how excited I am to be playing around with them. And that's basically where this district comes in. This is all new. This is a district obviously called Newmarket, and a part of that district, well, not technically a part of it, but it's going to be, is this crematorium. But what you might also notice is that I have had some fun with some custom parking lots, with some surfaces. I have been playing around with the invisible pedestrian paths, with the invisible roads. Let me tell you, I never really dabbled too much with invisible roads and paths in Cities Skylines 1, but seeing what I can do with them, being able to do like this, and I know it's just a parking lot. I know this is nothing compared to the things that everybody else is out there building, but this, looking at this makes me so happy because it just never, I mean, ignore the traffic, but it makes it feel a bit more alive. And I know it's just surface level parking, but it's a variety of colors and shapes and sizes, and it just makes it feel more real to me, especially given that where I grew up, underground parking is not really a thing. Multi-story parking isn't really a thing. It's all surface level parking. So as much of a waste of space as a lot of this is, it looks really cool to me. Especially if we come down here to Woodland Lane, because something that I did, and something I've noticed in a lot of buildings in Cities Skylines 2, is that you have these sort of tunnels for traffic to access the back of the building. So what I did was I used a combination of the surface tools and the different surfaces in the game. I used a combination of the invisible roads and then the invisible roads with parking to allow traffic to drive underneath the building, along this little curvy custom road thing here, and into some parking. And it works. I mean, there's people parked here. You can absolutely see that. And it looks really cool. I adore this. Now, if you go back a little bit to when we started building this whole space in some of those previous episodes, this was originally just a bunch of random row houses. It's all the North American style. Something I wanted to do with this, and you can kind of see it with all these different buildings around here, is inject a little bit of variety. Now, I say that kind of ironically because what I did do was go in and hand place a bunch of the same row house here, and then a bunch of the same row house here, and same thing over on this side, and the same thing all the way down here. So saying that I've added some variety is, it's only partially true. But what I mean is, I really like this. I like having these sort of taller buildings at the intersections. I like that some of this space is made up of apartments. I just like it. I think it's a really cool little bit of detailing. It's a really cool little use of the space, and it helps just give this area a little bit more character and makes it feel a bit more alive. And especially with just the surface level parking, the little thing going under here, and a little custom park as well. I use the Cemetery Mausoleum up here as the center point of a park. Maybe a little bit grim for directly across from some row houses, but it does feel like, you know, you got some fancy row houses here with a view out into a park. This doesn't, I mean, it is a mausoleum, obviously, but we can pretend it's something else, okay? It doesn't have to be a mausoleum. It's just a fancy thing. You can also kind of see inside of it. Obviously, it's not actually an interior, but yeah, there's like a thing in there to make it look like there is. Anyway, I was thinking about what this video was going to be and whether or not it was going to be me spending 20, 30 minutes gushing about all the mods that I'm really enjoying with Cities Skylines 2, which, by the way, I will try my best to link every single one of them in the video description. I've been tweeting about the game a little bit. I've talked about it on Discord. A couple of people have been asking me, you know, what mods have I started using? Everything will be linked below. And on the point of spending this video gushing about the mods, I am going to spend a little bit more time talking about a few more of them. Now, if you have been watching different people play this game on YouTube, you will be aware of many of these mods. But for me, this is my first time sitting down and talking about them, and I'm adoring it. I'm having so much fun. Now, one of my favorite mods in Cities Skylines 1 was Traffic Manager, and one of the best things you could do with Traffic Manager was use the lane connector. And what the lane connector mod let you do was this, which you can now do in Cities Skylines 2 with a mod just simply called Traffic. You can just go in and say, hey, this lane goes to there, this lane goes to there, but this one also lets you do unsafe connections. If I hold left Alt, I can make that an unsafe connection, which is basically a connection that traffic shouldn't do, but if they have to do it, then they're gonna do it. And I think that's just a really cool option. I don't really like having unsafe connections. I can go down here to the bottom left and remove all of the unsafe connections, which is what I like to do. And basically, I can use this in conjunction with Move It, which we've got down here. I can connect this, I can just do that if I want to, which the game I'm sure loves. The AI is thrilled that I just did that, but I can use Lane Connector and Move It and all sorts of things to make these junctions function that little bit better. I can also use the Traffic Lights Enhancement mod to go in here and say that I want this to have split phasing. I want to let them turn on red. I want an exclusive pedestrian phase. I can have more control over my traffic, where they go and how they get there than ever before. And that's something I've been doing here. It's something I've been doing here. You can obviously see that it's working amazingly because we have traffic jams everywhere, but it's, oh man, when I tell you that I have fallen in love with Cities Skylines all over again, I'm not joking. I really have. And this is what I've been missing, is these mods that just give you so much more control. Although in saying that, not all of the mods have been super successful for me. We're still seeing some issues with traffic on the highways, even though I've built different intersections and different bits of lane management to try and just controls things that little bit better. This, for example, I mean, it's nothing super fancy, it's nothing super elegant, but it is having some problems because we have 2 lanes of traffic trying to get condensed down into 1 lane to cut straight over here and then go back into 2 lanes because I figured a dedicated turning lane was necessary. This road, by the way, goes into Blackbird. That is Blackbird Valley Industrial, right? Yeah. It goes into the industrial zone. It goes into another industrial zone. This area has typically been terrible for traffic, and it's something that I do want to deal with. And part of doing that was building this intersection, and it has helped with the traffic that goes to and from this district. Although, to be fair, and to be completely transparent, what's probably helping a little bit more is the fact that this is now a gated community. So basically, there's no traffic going through here. The only traffic using this road to get off the highway, at least in this direction or either direction, is going to this district. So I think I'm going to turn off the gated community because I think it's only fair that we sort of let people flow through there and see what happens. I'm not expecting anything good to come out of doing that, but it might just solve some of the issues that we have down here. This is another mess of an intersection that I put together. I actually did this in a live stream over on twitch.tv/ConflictNerd. If you happen to be curious about what I do over there, you can go hit the follow button. But this was something I was going to get rid of. I was going to bulldoze this because I think it looks silly. But once traffic started kind of using it, and aside from the obvious right now, it actually does kind of work. It's kind of neat. I don't hate it. I think this is the first time I've ever built something like this in Cities Skylines 2. And again, I know it's relatively basic and relatively simple, but coming back after 4 months and building something like this was pretty cool, actually, and I'm quite pleased with it. So I'm not going to complain too much about how this whole thing turned out. Although I do need to go in here and take out some of these trees and these plants because they're on my road and I really don't want them to be. In fact, what might be a little bit easier is just using the tree brush to take out a bunch of these, and I might do a little bit of landscaping around here just to make this thing look better. So let's get a slightly larger brush and just take this all back a little bit. We can put it all back in shortly, but if I just go right back like this, we can give ourselves a nice blank canvas to play with. I'm going to do the same thing in here as well, because what I think I'm going to do is just build up some hills a little bit to act as sort of natural sound barriers. Not that we necessarily need them, to be fair, because we're just building sound barriers, but between a landfill, a recycling center, and a subway yard. So it's not like this is, protecting people's ears that happen to live here. But I figure I might as well, and then I can do some detailing alongside the roads to get some nice bushes in there. We can just have some fun with it, since that's kind of really just what I've been doing with Cities Skylines 2, is just having fun with it. It's been really kind of nice, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a really pleasant experience coming back to this. So we'll go ahead and do some kind of little hill like this. I might just raise this terrain up ever so slightly so that I can get something that's going to be a bit more gradual. So if we go and grab you, for example, we'll bring this brush strength up to about 75%. So we're going from here to here with the slope terrain tool. And if we just hit it like this, it basically just brings the terrain up so it's right underneath this road. The road's no longer on sort of a pedestal, which is fine. We'll flatten it out this way as well. We can flatten it out this way, and we will slope between those 2 points so that when it comes to smoothing this out, that's not what I wanted to do. So that when it comes to smoothing this whole thing out, we have a bit more of a gradual hill up to this. On this side, we can kind of do exactly the same thing. So we'll smooth down to there. We'll smooth to about that point, and we will smooth to about that point, and then just hit it with a softened terrain brush to kind of just give us something that looks like it's going up to the road rather than the road just being on this concrete pedestal that it was on. So that right there is roughly what I'm looking for. The road's obviously still elevated. We still have the concrete here, but I think that just looks that little bit better. And with some trees on it, I think it'll look pretty good. Over on this side, I'm kind of inclined to do something similar, but the brush strength is going to have to come way down because we don't want to get it too crazy here. And if we just bring this terrain up to, I'm going to say about there, because I think when I hit it with a smoothing brush, it's going to be a fair bit lower. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. This is going to be elevated. It's just not going to be as dramatically elevated as it is right now, which is completely fine. And you know, using the flattened terrain brush on a really low strength is making this a little bit more interesting. It's kind of giving us some slopes and some contour lines that we can play with here. So it's not just flattening everything out immediately. This is going to work a lot better for the smoothing brush as well. And then I think on this side, similar story, we'll kind of just keep the same elevation with the flattened terrain tool and just bring this all up a little bit, so that we can kind of have these hills just surrounding the intersection, just again to kind of enclose it a little bit. It's not going to be super noticeable from up above, but I think if we were to go down in there, I don't know if I have a first person mod installed, but we can use the camera tool. We can get down in there regardless. Just a little bit of smoothing. I kind of want some of these edges to be barely visible. I actually don't mind those too much in some places. I think it just makes it look a little bit more deliberate, right? We're not going to have perfection here. It's something that's man-made. These aren't necessarily natural hills that we're dealing with. So having some of these little dirt sort of ledges and edges just helps give it a bit of texture, a bit of variety, right? It would just be boring and green otherwise. And you know, even getting down here like this, before we've put any trees on this, I think this is better. My only complaint really is that well, the pillars are sunk into the ground a little bit, but we can have some fun with that, I think. I'm not sure how I'm going to have fun with that, but we'll figure it out. Maybe we can go in with just a single little bush or something like that. We could go in with like, I don't know, this wild green bush or the slightly, have we got any decently sized ones? I don't know that we do. I might have to do a couple of them in there, and I might have to use a little bit of energy to make it work, just to, well, hide our crimes. Basically, that's kind of what we're going for. I could admittedly use an apple tree and sort of sink it down there, but I don't think we need to do that. I think we can get away with it. What I would like to do is just come over here, and I think I'm gonna just line these highways with some bushes. I think it might look kind of interesting. So before we do that, I want to take these railings off of this section of highway. And I think that's because it is, yep, technically it has some key walls. Now well, you know, I say that I do like the key walls because they kind of remind me of, I don't remember what they're called. There's an actual specific name for them, but the barriers at the side of a highway, a motorway, a freeway, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of what this reminds me of. Except those barriers are just typically made of metal, whereas these are made of concrete. So I don't know if it quite has the same effect. It's kind of neat though, right? I don't absolutely hate it. What about retaining walls? Would a retaining wall look interesting here? Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I forgot that it still has this bug with the shadows. That's, ooh, you know what? We'll stick with what we had there. That looks just fine. That's, except for all of this going on. We'll fix that in a second. You know, I think as much as I want to line this with bushes, I think I am going to do some of these little key walls here just to make it look like it's got some crash barriers. I don't know if I want to do them in here though. This is kind of getting away from me now. This isn't really what I was thinking, but I do kind of like these, especially if I do that because it kind of connects it to the ramp a little bit better. All right, we're doing the barriers. We're doing the barriers. Anyway, what I think I'm going to do is use some bushes here to sort of line the sides of these roads. And I know that I could use the curve tool to do this, but I find it's kind of easier to just do this in small sections of straight lines, because the curve tool, I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just that getting the exact curve is kind of tricky, and I don't feel like spending 10 minutes trying to get the exact curve for this one section of road. So I'm kind of content just doing it this way in little sections. I have placed hundreds, I mean, hundreds is an understatement. I have placed thousands of trees by hand in City Skylines 1. I've probably placed at least a few thousand trees by hand in City Skylines 2, especially if we consider the fact that all these little bushes in here, every single one in all these little lines here, all placed by hand. One of the first things I ever did in City Skylines 2 was place all of these bushes by hand. And it was the same for the college as well. A lot of these trees were placed by hand, I'm pretty sure as well. I don't remember about the outskirts here, but all of these trees right here were placed by hand. All of these lines of trees, yeah, I've placed easily. Did I do these ones by hand as well? I think I did these before any mods. I might be misremembering this one. That might not be true, but regardless, the point being, I placed a lot of trees, okay? It might have been a waste of time because we built all this and then we just never looked back. But that's fine. That's kind of just what you do in City Skylines, right? You build something and then typically you never look back unless you're looking back to go, that's terrible, I'm going to bulldoze all of it. At least that's how I tend to do things. That's maybe part of why I don't look back on things. But anyway, that's sort of besides the point. Something I think is worth pointing out though, is that with the Economy 2.0 update, your city is supposed to kind of fall apart. Now that's intentional. It's part of the game kind of rebalancing for the new economy. Something I've noticed with my city is that kind of hasn't happened. Obviously we have, well, you know, that death wave going on, and it's, well, I say death wave. It's not so much a death wave going on as it's a death wave that has happened and we just haven't cleaned up afterwards, which is, you know, we'll not think too much about it, but that's kind of the reality of it. It's not that people are actively dying, it's that people have died and are just, well, still there. But my city didn't really have any of the same sort of side effects of Economy 2.0 that I've seen other people having. I've seen people need to completely rebalance their economy. I have seen people need to demolish things, buy different tiles, sell tiles, change tile upkeep, which is a new thing in Economy 2.0. I've seen people have to do a lot to stop their city from kind of falling apart and to stop their population from dwindling into nothing. I've not had to do any of that with Linden. I've not had to do a thing. I'm still making money. I'm still at nearly 100,000 per hour. My population is 1,000 per hour right now. And yeah, my population when I loaded this save for the first time in Economy 2.0 was like 195,000 people. And it has just continued to increase, which is kind of wild. I'm also going way too far back with those bushes, but that's fine, I guess. I don't think I'm going to do bushes sort of around this. That seems kind of silly, but I do want to fill these spaces with them. So let's get that done really quickly. Oh, and while I'm doing that, I've just noticed that this corner is completely messed up. And by the looks of it, that seems to be because of the way the road markings are done here, or at least that's possibly part of the problem. I did go in here and change how these lanes operate. I'm wondering if that's maybe part of it as well. But I can't help but wonder if I was to use move it, grab this node and bring it back, does that change anything? It doesn't really. What about you and ah, there we go. That seems to have at least tidied up the corner a little bit. Not perfect by any means, but definitely better than what we had. Which is, well, it's not really saying much, is it? But, you know, I'll take that as an improvement. What do I bring you back a little bit as well? Does that give me anything interesting? Not really. Well, you know, can't win them all. That's totally fine. That's still an improvement, although I'm going to have to start moving some of these bushes, which is kind of a pain since I just placed them. But again, we can go in and hide some crimes. It's nothing we can't manage with a few bushes and some trees to make this place just look a little bit more interesting. And I should probably, at this point it might be obvious, but I think part of what we might be doing with today's episode is just seeing how long this death wave takes to I'd say clear up, but I mean, I don't think we've really put a dent in it yet. Well, I have. I mean, this whole place was dead at one point, and yeah, we're getting there. It's just, might take a while. Okay, so this is starting to come together, but I've decided that I don't necessarily love how these bushes look. So I'm going back over every single one of them, and I'm adding some more bushes, these yellow flowers this time, into all of the gaps. Now, it's good that they fit perfectly. It's just that something that I thought was going to be sort of a one and done kind of thing is now going to take twice as long because I'm going over it twice. But I think you'll agree that when compared to the side that doesn't have the yellow flowers, this just looks a bit more interesting, a bit more exciting, a bit more pleasant to look at. Although, in saying that, we do have these nice purple flowers, and I'm now slightly concerned that I might prefer how this looks over the yellow flowers. Alternatively, I could just do both. We could have this side have the yellow flowers, this side have the purple flowers, and that way we have the best of both worlds. And I think that's what we're gonna do. So let's get the yellow flowers along here. And then let's get the purple flowers on the other side. And so that means that even though you might be stuck in traffic, you do at least have something kind of pleasant to look out the window at, even if they didn't all line up perfectly. And, you know, I mean, yes, some people might have allergies, and so this might actually be kind of terrible for them, but it'll make things interesting. That's how I'm choosing to look at this. I also do feel like this side's a little bit bare, not having any plants on it when the other side does, but I think I'm okay with that. I do. I think what I'd like to do at this point is bring this forest back in, make it a little bit more dense. Maybe that's kind of what we fill this side in with. So we'll get ourselves a tree brush. I, for the life of me, do not remember how on earth a tree brush works. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna want some teen trees. We'll get some elderly, we'll get some adult trees in here. We'll go for a, say 50%. We'll go for 70 on the size. And I want some oak trees in here. So we'll just sort of dot them in like this. And I don't want to go too close to the road because I want to get some slightly smaller trees in there. We'll do sort of the same thing over here, just filling in this space. And we'll do the same thing over here, and we'll keep this one a little bit further back from the road, just because, again, I want some smaller trees in there. We'll also put some oak trees in there to kind of feather it all together. Same thing over on this side, just get some oak trees, kind of create a nice little shape right there to leave a bit open. We'll go in with some alder trees this time, and I'm going to turn anarchy off so that they're not overlapping too much. And these guys can get a little bit closer in a few spots like this. We'll blend them in like that. We'll fill in this space with some alder trees, fill in this space. We go a little bit closer to the road and maybe fill in some of this space with some alder trees as well. And you know, I've got to be honest, with all the trees back in here, it really doesn't seem like I've done all that much, but I think it looks better. And so I'm kind of okay with it. Traffic, on the other hand, is still not great, but it is sort of filtering through, which is what I'm looking for. So it's moving, which is great. Looking over this way, it's filtering as well. We don't seem to have too much going on with traffic around here, although, yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting. A lot of our industrial traffic is now cutting through this space, which is creating a traffic jam down here because they're all trying to come through the industrial zone and then take this right-hand turn to get into my city. So this was kind of to be expected. I've basically moved the traffic jam that was happening over here over to here now. This one will clear up because a lot of the traffic that was coming down this way is cutting through the industrial zone, but this has been an ongoing problem. I don't think there's any mods that are necessarily going to fix this because I think this problem is essentially caused by the fact that there is just a lot of traffic coming through here, and well, I probably just need a highway, essentially. I need a highway that cuts along the back of the city. which is still very dead, by the way. Although, honestly, it's getting there. We're up to 213,000 people. I'm still making 67,815 an hour. So we're doing all right. We're definitely doing all right. Birth rate is 2,500-ish per month. Death rate is 1,000. We got 20,000 people moving in a month, which is kind of wild. We have 99,187 jobs, 92,000 people employed. Unemployment is 21%. I don't love that. We can make that better, but we can, I mean, that could be worse is how I'm looking at it. That definitely could be worse. I think it's also interesting looking at the general happiness of my city, because the thing that's got them frustrated is the unreliable mail service. They don't love the garbage service. They don't love the noise pollution, but for the most part, people do seem to be relatively happy. So really, whatever Economy 2.0 has done to my city, I mean, it hasn't really, I mean, it killed a bunch of people. That's not great, but other than that, we're kind of fine. We're making more money. We're making more people. I would really like to solve this problem. So I'm going to focus a little bit less on the economy thing for the right here, right now, and see if I can't maybe do something about this. So I think this road can go away. I'm going to get rid of some of these little buildings and parks that we have in here as well. We'll take out these trees that I had lining the space. And you know what? These trees here can go as well, because I think these buildings are probably going to go as well. Now, let's take these power lines back a little bit, because I'm probably going to be cutting into this space a little. And I'm kind of hoping I can just go straight up with this road here, because a lot of this is, well, custom. A lot of this was placed by me. But my thinking here is that this is an asymmetrical road. So let me get an asymmetrical road here. And my hope is that I can go straight off of here. We'll turn off our various snapping options. I just want the 90-degree angle from down below. So you are going to go straight up to there, and that'll be totally fine. Now, that doesn't play too nicely with everything else, which is a bit of a pain, but I'm not super worried about that. We'll cut you straight through here. We'll take out this excess, and I mean, it's all connecting, which is fine. I think what we'll do is flip you around. I might have to change this road. I really don't want to change this road, but I might have to just do this to it, get it to be just a 4-lane road, but we'll give this a shot. We'll see what happens with it. I'm kind of hoping I can get the zoning off of this road as well. There is a mod somewhere that lets me do zone controls in the different roads, but I, for the life of me, can't find it, so we're not going to worry too much about it. What I think I'll do is just bring myself a road. Let's see. So this thing is asymmetrical. It is 2 lanes going that way. It's 2 lanes going this way. I guess we'll just stick with the asymmetrical road for now, but what I'd like to do is just sort of curve it to follow the train tracks a little bit. So up to about there. And I'm going to try my best to have this thing kind of hug the tracks a little bit, which it's mostly doing. So we'll hug them to about there for now. That's going to be a bit of a pain for zoning later on, but I'm not super worried about it. And I think what we'll do is, that's roughly the halfway point there. We'll flip it around so we have 2 lanes kind of coming towards this junction, which, again, it might be enough, it might not be enough, but we'll figure it out. Now, for this guy, I'm kind of thinking of connecting it up to here. That's not really a, well, actually, you know what? I was going to say that's not really a main road, but technically that road does connect out to the highway. So that might not be the worst idea. Let's give it a shot. Let's go for it and see what happens. So we're going to cut straight through here. Anarchy is off, so none of the trees should be on the road. Obviously, this is going to be kind of a problem with the trains and whatnot, but I think we're going to have to just sort of deal with it. We'll just chop all of this out. We'll take these lines out as well. And some way, somehow, I just need to connect this all together and hope that traffic wants to use it, which, I mean, that's going to be the real test, is whether or not they actually do want to use it. Now, that seems like a pretty good spot. Let me turn on my guidelines. Let me just get a very simple curve like this. And honestly, that could have turned out a lot worse. I mean, I do suspect this train crossing is going to be a bit of an issue, but we'll figure that out. Let's get this guy changed up like so. And so 2 lanes go into that junction, 2 lane. Do we want 2 lanes going this way? Do we need 2 lanes going that way? We might, because doing this might help us out. 1 lane for straight on, 1 lane for going left onto this one-way road. That might not be a terrible idea. We'll do the same thing here. And we do seem to have more traffic that goes and leaves this area than we do coming into this area. So we'll kind of play around with these asymmetrical roads a little bit. But my hope is that this is just going to get us into a good spot. Now, what I would like to do is just reconnect my power lines, because those are kind of important. So we'll just kind of follow the road with these high capacity underground power lines right up to about there, I guess. Will do the job. I'm not expecting a miracle here. Definitely not expecting that, but I am hopeful that this is at the very least going to help us a little bit, because if any of this industrial traffic wants to go into this part of the city, they can now use this back road instead of doing what they've been doing this entire time. So we'll let that area build up once I get the simulation going. This space, I mean, I don't know what to do with it right now. We'll figure that out. But this can build, and that's just fine. This space back here, I want to put something along it. I don't know what to put along it though, but I do think we should get some kind of foliage. Maybe these little cultivated bushes would be an idea for just along the train tracks. Maybe something a little bit larger. Apple trees, definitely no. We have this cultivated bush as well, which is pretty good. It fills the space really nicely. This is the one we use by the highway, so I'm going to say no on that one. We have the little linden tree there. We have the birch tree. Don't we have, yeah, the poplar trees? Now I mean, if I used a little bit of anarchy, what are you doing? Hello? Okay. All right. Man, that train was, that train was really feeling itself there. Good Lord. Oh my God, am I in the video? What I think we'll do, what I think we'll do is we'll put these poplar trees right alongside the pedestrian path. That way it's not right up against the train tracks. It's still in the grass, but it's, you know, it's not, you know, the trains aren't going to be hitting it basically. And I think that's okay. I think, you know, 10 meters apart, it creates a nice little divide there. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, but just enough that we sort of separate the tracks from everything else. I think we'll do the same thing here as well, even though some of these places do have trees in their yards. I think it still creates that nice little bit of separation. And I think we'll do the same thing just along here as well. This can go the entire way up to this corner right here. And I will try my best to do sort of the same thing just in here. We'll go right along the backs of these houses about as far as I can reasonably go, which I think is going to be to here. We don't want to go too much closer because we're starting to get really close to the tracks. And I think we can do the same thing here as well. We'll go from this corner right up to about, say, that spot. And maybe, just because I'm feeling a little bit fancy, we'll fill in this corner with some poplar trees as well. I'd also like you guys to build properly instead of those tiny little lots. So that's that sorted. I'll probably do a bit more in there with some trees, but I would like to see what happens with traffic. We are immediately seeing a good number of trucks using this road. My concern is how many of them are going to go and take this left turn. So if they are going to do that, I'd kind of like to get rid of U-turns and unsafe turns. I kind of want dedicated lanes for these things. So if you're going straight on, you're going straight on. If you're going left, you're going left. Same with you. Kind of have that dedicated left hand or right hand turn there. I think that just tidies things up a little bit. It's probably unnecessary. It might complicate things with traffic a little bit, but I think some dedicated lanes will help us out. And I think these gaps in here, I'm going to just try using some birch trees. I might use some bushes. I might use an alder tree as well, just for a bit of variety, something a bit more dense. But I would like to just try and fill this in as best I possibly can, just so we kind of have that natural sound barrier between all these row houses and the train right there. And I think that's doing a pretty good job. We'll do the same thing here. Maybe just sneak an alder tree right there. It's a little bit close to the tracks, but you know, it's fine. These These Linden train drivers like to live dangerously, I guess. So that's kind of what we'll go for. And that seems all right. I don't mind that. And hopefully the people living here won't mind that either. It's honestly, I like this area a lot. I think Newmarket looks, I know we started this episode with a little bit of a fixation on Newmarket, but I'm still so pleased with how it turned out. I really am. I feel like the death waves got worse. I also feel like this garbage problem's creeping in. This might be something to do with Economy 2.0 as well. I'm not going to lie. It's quite possible that it's also related to the traffic. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's related to the traffic problems, all right. Yeah, well, I don't think there's ever been a more visceral example of, well, there's your problem than what we're seeing right here. Okay. That feels personal. I'm not gonna lie. That feels personal. So I guess while we have all of this demand for everything down here, we can play around a little bit with some zoning. I'm gonna put just a few more row houses in here right up to about there, because we can kind of use this to extend the Newmarket footprint that we have going on. But because we have all this demand for commercial zones as well, have I just done EU? Medium density row housing? That is not what I'm looking for right there. I do want to keep the North American theme running through here. And I could, if I wanted to, go ahead and place these all by hand so that they're all identical the way we have down here, but I don't really want to do that because I do think it looks a little, it gets a little bit old, basically, is what I'm getting at. So we'll not bother doing that. What I would like to do is get myself something a little bit mixed right here on this corner. And this is where I am going to look for something that is going to be placed manually, because I want a building that is going to fit in there perfectly. So realistically, we're looking for a mixed 4x4. We could do an EU mixed 3x4 if I really wanted to. It would be right up against the buildings, and it doesn't look terrible. But this, well, actually, we do a little EU building there. That is something that I sort of indulged in a little bit with some EU architecture around here. And I do need to get, there are other mods that I still need to pick up. There's ones that let me do decals and graffiti and stuff like that. I do need to get those because I think graffiti on the side of some of these buildings would look incredible. It's just that I don't have the capacity to do that right now. Although, I've got to be honest, I was kind of set on not doing a 5x3 building right here. I think we're going to do that one. I think that one looks great. To be completely honest, I really do. I think that building looks kind of fantastic. So we'll put another row house in there. We can extend our mixed zoning back to there. Yes, it's right up against the train tracks, but it does have a little fence, and I'm sort of okay with that. And I can also go in here and search for some surfaces, so that what I could reasonably do if I wanted to is just extend this surface up to the sidewalk, and then maybe just do the same thing up here. So maybe this entire sort of surface can just be extended to kind of cover that entire space. Something kind of like this. So we don't really see that, that little divide. And maybe we do the same here, so we don't have that divide between the tracks and that surface. Obviously, it's not perfect. The fence could probably line up better, but I'm kind of okay with that. I also like that this is accessible. If I wanted to do a little road through here, I absolutely could, and that's kind of tempting because I haven't really played around with that yet in this episode, but I'm sort of okay with this. I think it's a bit of a weird looking building. It's definitely a little bit taller than I was perhaps looking for, but it kind of carries that vibe through that there's been some redevelopment, and that's kind of why I'm doing this. Is I like the idea that once upon a time, there might have been 3 or 4 row houses here. They were bought up, bulldozed, and redeveloped into apartments and some shops. I think that just tells a story. I mean, it's obviously a bunch of, well, bunch of nonsense. You know, we just built it, but I like to imagine that that's kind of what's gone on, right? A bunch of row houses got knocked down here and built into, you know, some shops and a garage and apartments. It's just, I just like it. There's sort of a narrative there that's doesn't really exist, but I like to pretend that it does. I also kind of like the idea of having some little invisible pedestrian paths that cut down behind these buildings. So we're going to do something along these lines. We'll kind of come down here. We can, oh yeah, there is actually a road that comes through there. But I think what we'll do is have just a little bit of a windy little pedestrian path that can come down sort of this way. And then I'm going to just sort of cut it across through here. Now my thinking is it can kind of just cut past that, that dumpster. And if I do that, that gives us a connection for people to walk from here along the back of these buildings and onto that road. And I can kind of just do the same thing down here. If we turn off our angle snapping, we can go to this spot and do exactly the same thing, cutting down to the road there. And we'll do the same thing over here, going all the way down to the ends of the buildings right there, which again, I'm okay with. Now, actually, you know what? I'm not okay with that last one. I want rid of you because we'll extend that out once we have more buildings down this way. But my thinking is that once these row houses get built, these row houses, which by the way, I said I didn't all want identical and they have now turned up all identical. But regardless, now that they're built, I could come in here and I could basically put in some paving and I could make this all sort of neat and tidy and all that good stuff. But I actually had a thought that might be a bit better. And that has me thinking that I want to get rid of this little pedestrian path idea. Although I'm going to have to struggle a little bit to get this one to get out of there. It's kind of a pain, but I'm sure. Oh, there we go. Is that it? That's it. Basically, these row houses don't have huge yards, and admittedly, they are up against a train track. But why don't I just go in here? We can extend the surfaces on these yards, and I could go, for example, up to this corner. I can go up to this spot and so on and so forth. Basically, giving these guys much larger backyards, I'm obviously going to have to put a fence between them and the train track, but I think this is kind of the better goal. I think this is the way we go with this. These gaps, on the other hand, are slightly tricky. I'm going to have to figure those out. And then at the front of these places, there's also some little sections that are going to need some attention as well, because they don't quite, you know, match the road here. But words, okay? I'm struggling here. I'm genuinely just excited to be messing around with mods in City Skylines again. You're going to have to bear with me. I'm struggling to put together sentences because it's just, this is the stuff I have missed so much with this game, and I put off, look, this is gonna sound so stupid, but I genuinely put off recording this episode for a couple of days because I knew what it was gonna be. I knew this was just gonna be an hour or however long it's wound up being, probably not an hour, but I knew it was just going to be however long of me sitting here being like, oh my God, I love mods. And I do. They're really fun. I love that I can do this, you know? I love that I can extend the little garden up to the end here and just make this whole thing just really come together and feel that little bit more seamless. And I think doing this especially, it makes it reminds me of how lots worked in SimCity 2013, because they sort of follow the curvature of the roads a little bit, and this kind of lets you get that similar vibe. Now, I really don't know what I'm going to do with these gaps here. Really haven't figured that out. Maybe someone just gets a slightly larger yard. I don't know who, though. Let's give this one. The one on the left here can get a slightly larger yard. So we'll extend this back to here. We'll give you like an extra bit of yard there. We'll bring this sort of down the side of the other house. Bring this down to here, and there we go. So that gives them some extra yard. We'll put like a gate or something on there, and it'll be fine. Can I just get rid of this entire section of the front lawn here? Because we kind of don't need it. I don't know if this is a good idea, but we're gonna do it anyway. So get rid of you. We'll go back in here, get myself my surface, and bring this to like there. This is now going to snap here, over to there, and down to there. And now that's all just one surface. Okay, yeah, that works absolutely perfectly. All right, so with all of this grass extended back, I now need to figure out how I'm going to do some fences, because I haven't really thought this part through. Now, I can use Find It to look for some fence segments, but whether or not they're going to work all that nicely, that's yet to be seen. Now, there are a lot of options. We have some residential pieces like this, which honestly look all right. I don't mind it, but I think I'd rather play around with some of these shorter residential segments, because if I use these guys and I kind of keep them relatively close together, they fit together better. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I think that's how we're going to do this. I think we're going to use some residential segments just right along this train track, and I'm going to hope for the best. Really, that's about all I can do is hope for the best. So we're going to start right here. And I am just going to come down here until I think we need to turn, which I think is going to be right about... Oh, these change color as well. Oh, man. That's unfortunate. that's going to be unfortunate. Okay, let's try and get that one. And you know, I don't mind it. But now I need to keep doing that. And I need to get it to line up as best I can. I guess I can hide some crimes in here, right? With some trees and stuff like that. So we'll do this in tiny little segments until we cover this entire stretch of train track. And then I have to go and do this all between the houses. That's such a distance that I have to cover. This is going to suck, but it's got to be worth it, right? We've got to believe that it's going to be worth it, because it should, in theory, look really cool. And there we go. It's kind of janky. Most of the fences don't line up perfectly. There's a bunch of different colored fences going on in here. And if any of these buildings ever upgrade, this is going to look terrible. But we have a bunch of individual backyards going right up to the train tracks, a bunch of trees to create a natural sound barrier. And what's more is that this extra road here seems to have actually helped with the traffic problem, which is kind of wild. Which has had the knock-on effect of, I don't know if, I mean, look, the garbage problem in the middle of the city is terrible. The healthcare problem in the middle of the city is terrible. The death care problem in the middle of the city is terrible, but the death care problem out here is kind of going away. And I think that's a good, I mean, I know that's a good thing. Objectively, that is a good thing. So I think helping traffic out here is definitely helping the rest of the city, which is great. I should have done this a very long time ago. I also extended the asymmetrical road straight through this entire space, so traffic is now able to get through a little bit quicker. Traffic down here, on the other hand, is still struggling. Definitely some room for improvement around here. Not really sure what exactly that improvement could or should be. I haven't really decided that one yet, but definitely something better than what's going on here would definitely be nice. It might be an idea to sort of move some of these roads around and move some of these facilities around, but I'm not really in any major rush to do that. I will go in here though, and I will just change some of this a little bit. So that's going to be going straight on. You are not going to go to that lane. You're going to be going straight on. You go straight on. You're fine. Left and right. That's fine. You can actually probably just do that instead. So we have some dedicated turn lanes right there. Up this way, I mean, this is our problematic road, which I think is going to continue to be problematic because it probably just needs more lanes and more space, which I'm not really willing to give it right now. What I could do is go in here and set up some split phasing to allow traffic to kind of do some things. We'll allow turning on red just because we can. We can probably do similar down here. We'll do split phasing with turning on red as well, just to try and improve things a little bit. And I don't know that we need to go too much crazier than that. A lot of the junctions that were having problems before, so this one, for example, this one, and this one, I think I've got all of these set up with split phasing already, or at least some sort of traffic lights management. This one up here could probably use a little bit of attention. I'm not gonna lie. This particular road, I mean, it's really not set up for this much traffic, so we could make it asymmetrical and kind of continue that trend of having asymmetrical roads coming over here. This entire back road realistically might want to be asymmetrical, so we kind of have a dedicated turning lane, which I'm not against doing. It's not going to look great with these row houses here, but I do think having the option for traffic, you know, to turn instead of just being stuck with the one lane, I think that's going to be better for us. We'll take this out of here, and that should be fine. I don't think we're going to need to set up any crazy traffic lights on this. I think we're kind of fine as we are. And I realize that I have basically taken out all of the roadside parking for this entire area. So something I might want to do, I'm not going to do it today, but something I might want to do in the near future is figure out some parking for this space, because that is something I did bear in mind with Newmarket, was there isn't really any roadside parking for a lot of this. So that's why I wanted to build these little parking lots. And that's why I love this. We're finally seeing it. I mentioned it at the start, but look at it. You get the cars coming underneath the building. It's so cool, man. I love it so much. You have no idea. It is genuinely my favorite thing that I've built in this game. I know it's so silly and so easy. And again, I said it at the start, this is nothing compared to what some people are building, but just this alone, like that little bit of detail is so cool, man. It's so good. Anyway, it seems like my traffic solutions aren't really working. We still have some traffic problems here and there. Down here isn't perfect. There's apparently a traffic jam here, but honestly, I think it's an improvement. I think this little junction's doing some stuff, which is great. I don't know why traffic's terrible over here again. Oh, that's why people have, it's not so much traffic jams as it is someone's fallen off their motorcycle. You know what? We'll not worry too much about it. This has been really fun. I've genuinely really missed this. So I guess all that's left to say for today, despite, well, aside from the fact that I don't really know what we've done other than talk about mods, decorate this intersection and build a row of houses, I do feel a little bit bad that that's about all I've done today. But yeah, this is just easing ourselves back into it. I also wanted to see how the death wave would progress, and it's mostly gone at this point. It's kind of been replaced with that garbage problem, which we'll address in the next episode. Same with any of the other service issues that we're seeing. Services have been changed and sort of rebalanced with the Economy 2.0 update as well. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing a shortage of, you know, garbage and healthcare and things like that. So that's something we can deal with in that next episode, because it's gonna happen. We're back. We're playing Cities Skylines 2 again, and I'm really excited about it because the mods are so good. And honestly, the performance is a little bit better, it seems, as well. 216,000 people, and it's not stuttering like crazy the way it used to. Although that's also because I'm not like in the heart of downtown, which is, yeah, the frames definitely take a hit over here, but still, it's good. We're back. And I think that is going to be my cue to say thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.